Kedgeree. Right, what is Kedgeree? Well, you'll have seen the images on the thumbnails, so you've got some idea what it looks like. It is a rice dish made with smoked fish, and the two main sources of protein are the smoked fish and boiled eggs. Additional flavourings come from the peas and the curry. There is a chicken stock here, and there's also some chopped fresh or dried parsley, which you'll need for this. I only have dried at the moment. So I'll take you through the ingredients. First of all, a little bit more about Kedgeree. It's one of those dishes that entered British cuisine via the British Raj in India. I think the people who lived over there, they came back to the UK, people in the diplomatic corps or planters and people like that, they came back to the UK and they wanted the very best of the flavours they enjoyed in India back in the UK, and this is one of the fusion dishes that came out of that. And there are quite a lot of dishes, British dishes, that have their origins in India. And another famous one is rice pudding. It's really an anglicised version of an ancient Indian recipe. So anyway, we'll go through this. Smoked haddock fillets. Smoked haddock is a really lovely ingredient, and we always smoke it and leave the skin on, as you'll see there. So we do remove that in the cooking process. And you'll see colourant on it. Now traditionally they probably would have coloured this with Erratum, but this is coloured with, it says curcumin, which is turmeric. It's the fancy name for the yellow colouring in turmeric. And paprika. So it's a mixture of paprika and turmeric. So it's very naturally coloured. It's not artificially coloured at all. So despite what you may believe. So that's the haddock fillets, and for this recipe I have two 20-gram packs. So that's 440 grams of smoked haddock fillets. For spices I have curry powder. You don't need a lot of each, you only need about a teaspoon of each for this dish, and turmeric again. 2 hard-boiled eggs, peeled, ready to go. You'll need some milk, you'll need some salt, some pepper, sea salt I've got here, you'll need some parsley, you'll need rice, you'll definitely need rice. I prefer fresh ginger, but I've only got dried ginger at the moment, so I'll use a little bit of that instead of fresh ginger. You'll probably need about a thumb-sized piece of fresh ginger rather than a teaspoon of that. Half an onion. It's not very heavy on onion, this dish, and you'll need 3 cloves of garlic. You can add more garlic if you prefer, but I think subtlety is key for this dish, so I'll keep that down to 3 small cloves of garlic. You'll need about half a cup, something like that, just a ramekin full of frozen peas. These are little sweet petit pois. Very, very nice. There's 250 mils of chicken stock there. I prefer to use chicken. You can use fish stock if you have it, but chicken stock is perfectly good for this dish, and it gives a nice finished flavour. So the first thing I want to do is top up my stock with some milk, and I want to double that up to 500 mils. Half a litre, and that's just right. Okay. The other thing you'll need is a bay leaf and some cinnamon, but I'll show you that in a moment. Right, the next action takes place on the stove. So into a large shallow pot I've poured the mixture of milk and chicken stock. And also into that I'm just going to put a little piece that size of Dalchini cinnamon. It's cassia bark, but I split that in 2, and 1 bay leaf. It doesn't matter what type of bay leaf you use. I like to use the Indian ones for this. although probably authentically they probably would have used British bay leaves for that. And then what we do is we bring that up to a boil and then reduce it to a simmer. We don't want it cooking too hot. Okay, while all that's heating up, I'm just going to chop up my onion, and I want to chop that up fairly fine. And the same with the garlic. So that's the onion and the garlic chopped up. And what I'll do is I'll cut up the eggs nearer the time I use them, because I want them to stay nice and moist. Okay, so our poaching liquid is coming up to the boil, so I'm going to turn that right down now to a low simmer. Before it comes back to the full boil, I'm just going to drop in my fish fillets, and I drop them in skin side down, and then I'm just going to let that sink in there like that and poach for a few minutes. And the thing is, the only thing we want to do is cook that till the fish wants to come away from the skin, because it's much too easy to overcook fish like this. So we just let it cook through for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll be able to check it and see if it's ready. So while our fish is gently poaching away, you want to get hold of a pan, and it needs to have a nice solid bottom, and ideally a lid with no vents in it. So a heavy lid with no vents in it, if you've got such a pan, that's good. If your lid isn't that heavy, you may be able to put some sort of weight on top of it to hold it down as the rice cooks, because we're going to cook our rice by a method known as absorption, and that requires a tight fitting lid. So the first thing I want to do is bring that up to quite a temperature, get the bottom quite hot, and then add in just a little vegetable oil, maybe 1-2 tablespoons at the tops. Bring that up to temperature. Then in goes the onion. And we give that a nice stir around, and we let that cook down a little bit till it starts to become translucent before adding in the garlic and the spices. Keep it moving to prevent it burning. You don't want it to burn at all. So it's starting to get a little bit translucent. We can go in now with the garlic. Give that a stir. And then we turn the heat right down on that now to your lowest setting, so that the onion doesn't burn. And then we want to go in with 1 teaspoon of curry powder, and 1 teaspoon of turmeric. Turmeric has some great properties, and most of those are brought out by the addition of black pepper, so I always put black pepper whenever I use turmeric. So just a few scrapes of that, and keep that moving on that low heat, because we want to cook that out a little bit. At this stage you can add in about 1/2 teaspoon of ginger powder, or add in your fresh ginger, which needs to be grated, of course. That really does smell great. We're keeping an eye on our fish, and I'll take you over and show you that right now. So we've removed the fish fillets because they're nicely cooked through and starting to flake, and we've put them on a plate to cool. And we're left with the poaching stock. Well, we don't want to throw that away. We don't want to waste that, because that's all good flavour. So the next thing we want to do, first of all, I'm going to pick out those whole spices and discard them, and then we'll scoop that out and put it in a jug. So our onion and spices have been cooking away very gently in that oil. Now we get to the point of adding the rice. And whatever measure of rice you need, you're going to need 1.5 times that in stock. So that's around about a cup of rice. 2 cups of rice. And it's very important, this point, is you've got to stir it in to get every piece of that rice coated in oil. So get that stirred in. Make sure every bit of rice looks like it's got some coating of the oil, of the flavoured oil on it. And then the next process is just adding twice that amount. So we add the same amount of liquid. That's 1 time, and then we top the rest up with water. So now top that up with water until we've got twice the amount of our rice. So 2 cups of rice, 4 cups of liquid, which includes the cooking stock for the poaching stock for the fish. Give that a good stir to make sure everything's combined, and then into that we put our peas. In go the peas. Stir those to mix, and then that needs to go on high heat with the lid on, and then be brought until you can see steam issuing from the lid. You need to keep, or if you've got gas you can turn it straight down instantly, but if you've got a hob like mine, you need to keep one ring really low and the other ring really high as it cooks. So I'm keeping this ring really low to transfer this to as soon as the steam starts issuing, because what we're creating now in there is basically a rice pilaf, only we're making it with the poaching liquid from the fish, and we're adding peas and the curry and all those different flavours. It won't take long for that to come up to a boil, and you'll start to see steam issue from somewhere around the lid. Right, it's very important that at nowhere from now on until I let you know that you remove the lid, because we are cooking this by steaming, by absorption, and if you lift the lid you break the magic. It doesn't work anymore. So you keep the lid on and you guard it jealously, because curious people will come along and go, "Ooh, what's that?" and lift the lid and ruin it. So guard it jealously and keep the lid on. So the lid will get too hot to touch. At the moment I can touch it, but once it gets too hot to touch, that is when it's starting to steam, and you may see steam issuing out the side of the lid, or the lid might rattle depending on what your cookware's like. But as soon as that happens, that's the time to transfer it over to your lowest heat. Okay, that's burning hot and it's making loud boiling sounds, so I can start to see steam issuing from one corner. So I'm going to drag it across to the cooler setting, which is set at my lowest setting, and I will leave it there with the lid on for 5 minutes, and then turn it off and leave the lid on for another 10 minutes. So that's got another 15 minutes to go, 5 of which will be on the heat and 10 minutes will be on no heat at all. Okay, so that's the fish as it came out of the poaching water. I find it easy to do this just with a knife and fork, because I'm used to using those. And then what I do is I tease it off the skin. I tease the fillets away from the skin. You can also do this just by hand, but I find it easy to get just under the skin and then slide it along. But however you do it, just take care to get the skin off, and just the skin off. Now a great place for that skin is inside the dog, or the cat. If you've got a cat, your cat will probably be nagging you while you're doing this, because they'll smell that gorgeous fish and they'll want a bit for themselves. So fish skin is exceedingly good for your cat's skin, teeth, eyes, and it makes a good feast for the cat, and your cat will love you forever for giving it to him. So that's the skin dutifully removed. That's all the skin gone, and I'm left with this lovely flaky smoked haddock, which I'm now going to tease out into flakes. Very simple to do. Pull with your fork one way and pull with your knife another, and it all just falls nicely into flakes. Don't make it too small, because you want some chunk in there, don't you? Give yourself some satisfaction while eating it. I love this dish, I do. I really do love it. And it's really not that hard to make. I mean, what you're doing, you're poaching a bit of fish and you're cooking a quick rice pilaf. It's not really that difficult. It looks fancy, but if you consider that for a long time this has been considered a breakfast food in Britain, and quite often it was just made with leftover rice from the dinner from the night before. I mean, I like to make it a little bit more posh than that, but it certainly does look good. And you want your fish flake to around about that sort of consistency, and as you see, it looks rather good. Alright, the next thing I want to do, because we're getting close to serving time, I want to chop up my eggs. So I'm just going to put the knife through them lengthways and half it again like that. So cut each egg into quarters along the lengthwise axis. Really that simple. And then I'll put those to one side and use them for my garnish. So after the 10 minutes, it's safe now to lift the lid, which we shall do, to a gush of steam. And you'll see all the peas tend to float on the top, and it's at this stage where we get a wooden spoon or a rice paddle like I've done and start to tease it all together. Right, one thing I want to do at this stage is I want to start adding back in the fish. So just some at a time, stir it in, and a bit more, because we're trying to reheat the fish in that residual heat. There's still some cooking going on, even 10 minutes after I shut it off. So this is rather a lot of fish, but I like lots of fish in my Kedgeree. As soon as you can, get the lid back on and leave that for another 5 minutes under very low heat. Okay, for presentation I like to leave this in a glass bowl, and the other good reason for this is if it's a microwavable glass bowl, you can just stick the whole thing back in the microwave to warm it up if need be. So what I like to do is tease that into a heap like that, because a heap looks like abundance, and abundance is always a good thing. So I'm going to push in dress it with some eggies, and I'll just put like a star shaped design. You can do it haphazard if you like. I just think it looks nice if you present it like this. Any last bits of egg, just drop them on top. You can do other garnishes for this, and they may include things like shallots or onions fried until they're brown. Some people like to put sultanas and things like that. Not for me, thank you very much. I like it as a savoury dish. And please don't put cheese on it. If you're one of those people that has to put cheese on every sandwich or every dish, then please try it without first. But cheese, in my opinion, does not belong on this dish, and it's not traditional. And one last flourish I'm going to put on that is a little bit of salt, just on top, and a little bit of black pepper. Just some flakes of sea salt. And they will stir in and give a little surprising crunch of saltiness and pepperiness. And I think even the most cynical of you are going to say that looks good, because I think it looks really good. Let's get you in a bit closer. Gorgeous. Right, we're going to have to do a taste test, aren't we, really? Oh, that smells great. The smokiness of the fish, really gorgeous. Another little garnish I neglected to mention is finely chopped spring onions. They really do go well with this. I don't happen to have any in, so I've just used dried parsley and the eggs, but it's really about the Kedgeree. Let's have a taste of this gorgeous Kedgeree. Make sure we get a bit of fish on that forkful. You're still getting the fragrance from the basmati rice. You're getting the delicious flavour of the smoked fish. The little popping sweetness of the peas. There is a faint taste of parsley. Let's have it with a bit of egg this time. So, a bit of egg. That's turned out absolutely wonderful. Rather pleased with that. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you would like to follow my channel, please subscribe. And don't forget to click the bell icon and select all to receive notifications for all my future videos. It would be great to hear from you in the comments, and I'll try to get back to as many of you as possible. You may wish to check out these titles, or even help me out with a donation using the links in the description below the video. Thanks for watching.